How's spring going?
It's going good. That's today day 13, and it's probably one of our more energetic practices. Both sides of the ball, flying around, having a good time. So, you'd love to see that from a coaching standpoint. Obviously, we want to be successful as much as we can defensively. Offensive coaches the same way, but you want to see some back and forth. So I thought that was good today. Our guys just had a lot of energy. So, good fun practice.
A year ago, all these guys were new with you. Now you've got some new talent. Not just in the secondary, but throughout the passing game. Is the teaching process any different this year for you?
To some degree, just like you said, having new guys coming in, really just understanding what we do from a schematic standpoint. They've had an idea through our recruiting and talking to them in that regard, but then actually doing it, asking them to do things different from a technique standpoint. So those new guys coming in, but that's what your foundation should be with the guys that are here. They shouldn't just not have a clue. Those guys help groom them, help move them along as well. And so I think we've had a healthy blend of that. Our guys that are here, that return, and then the guys that are new, that are coming in from either a transfer or freshman standpoint, kind of get coaching from both ends. And they're here for a reason. They can play ball. So as soon as they get that, they really kind of go from there. So
kind of different looking group a little bit, kind of a little more athletic maybe, a little more talented. What's it like working with this group that's kind of seems like there's not that drop off from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3?
Well, I think when you bring in new talent, no matter if it's a young guy or it's a guy that's a transfer, the first thing that happens, or you hope that happens in the room, is that the competition level rises, right? Those guys we've obviously brought in for a reason because they've been successful somewhere outside of here. So we bring them with that success that we know of, and then the guys that are here say, okay, we had this amount of success, but I know who that guy is as well, so I got to kick it up a notch. And so that's the thing that you see instantly. And I think that's been the thing that's best for us on the safety in the corner room is you see those guys have come in, pushed the bar, and so now everybody's chomping at the bit to continue to grow. And it's been results that we've been able to see throughout spring that make us feel good about where we're at and trending the right way.
What has Charles Woods brought coming in from West Virginia?
He's a dog. He's a dog in every sense of it. I mean, he's a guy that competes at a high level. When the ball is in the air, it's not I'm trying to play through the guy and trying to make sure he doesn't catch it. He's going to get the ball. And so that mentality for me and for us is something that, I just tell our guys, that's really something that's not taught. You're either that guy or you're not. And so when you have a guy like that challenges the offense or balls down the field, he puts himself in a good position. Technique-wise, I was really kind of didn't know where he would be coming in just because he's played a lot of football, right? He's been at Illinois State, he's been at West Virginia, and so you don't know if he comes in and he's kind of, oh, I know it all and I got it figured out. And he's been awesome. He wants to learn. He asks great questions. He has a high football IQ, so when he's in that meeting room and he's asking those questions, he's having those conversations, all of the guys in there are kind of been able to grow if they haven't already, been in that spot. But our relationship has been awesome, and so he'll be fun to watch.
You got a lot of guys in this secondary that you brought in with a lot of experience between Charles, Jonathan McGill, Sanders, Megginson, you go down the list. What does experience bring when you add guys with experience? What does that bring to a secondary?
It's invaluable. When you have guys that have played as much college football as they have, a lot of them at extremely high level, those guys have two things. One, they're able to fall back on those experiences. It's really not anything they haven't seen in a lot of those cases. And the other thing is that, they just grow you from a maturity standpoint. They're mature in that regard. I've known Chris now since he was 17 years old, so now seeing a 22, 21, 22-year-old version of him, that's been pretty cool. And just to see how he's matured and grown on the football field, as well as a guy like Jonathan McGill. That guy's a coach on the field, and it's not in an arrogance way by any stretch of the imagination. He's a football junkie. He's always up watching film. He'll sit in there with me. He'll sit in there with Scott. He's just kind of door to door once he's done from an academic standpoint and trying to learn and gain as much knowledge as possible. And so that experience will grow a guy like A.J. Davis, who's in semester 2 of his college career. Smoke, is only in semester 2 of his college career. So some of those things that they haven't seen, don't know, they're able to learn not only from me but from the guys in the room with that experience.
What have you seen from A.J. Davis and Smoke out there? The two kind of young guys that are out there.
AJ has been up and down, right? Just coming in, and now understanding that he has expectation. When you come in the door as a freshman, there isn't really expectation, right? You want to see where they fall, where they develop. Where now he has expectation to be able to compete for one of the starting positions, and so sometimes that can weigh heavily on you, and sometimes they respond well. It's been a little bit of healthy back and forth for him in that regard, but he's continued to trend the way that we expect him to going into year 2, for us. But Smoke. He's pretty good now. He got a chance to be pretty good, I guess I should say. He's a blank slate as far as where he is technique-wise and all of those things. Yes, you learn a semester's worth of things at LSU, but now you come in and he really doesn't have anything that's truly refined from a skill standpoint. So we get to build that. We get to build the good and the bad habits that he may have, and so you've seen him just grow tremendously in 13 practices. I'm excited about where he is. Just got to continue for him to do what he needs to do as a college student, right, which is outside of just football. It's like, making sure you're taking care of everything academically, socially, and just growing, because he's still, 18, 19 years old, and this is still new to him, no matter if he's from right down the street or not, so.
You mentioned Megginson, who obviously, again, you've known for a long time. What did you like most about his game, or what was it about him that when he put his name in the portal made you want to go out and get him and bring him to Dallas?
So Chris is a guy for us that technically is already built to what the expectation is, right? He's grown through coaching, and right, we've been separate for a year, you know what I mean? So first 3 years I had him, didn't have him last year, now I have him back. And so you kind of take and get rid of some quick mistakes or habits that may have formed in that time, but he comes right back in and steps into what we do, understands the defense, and so when I'm talking on the field, when I'm talking in the meeting rooms, like, this is all things he's heard before. Nothing is new for him, or not much is new for him. And so to see him come in and now, instead of just having him at that 17-year-old freshman that you had to teach all those things, I expect him to push the room. I expect him to know, keep our guys in good standing from being on time and all of those things that come outside of the football portion of things. He's going to pull them to the side, all right, Coach Hunley really don't like this, or, hey, he does like this, and so those things help, right? Because now our relationship, me and him, as well as the room, just continues to strengthen and grow. And so it's been exciting to see, and glad to have him here for sure.
Coach Likens talked about it with Mello and Keyshawn, but what does it mean when a kid kind of picks you a second time, that obviously the experience was good the first time through, and that kind of relationship is solid enough, and he respects you enough, and obviously you respect him enough as a player to want to coach him again and bring him in?
No, I won't lie, that's awesome. It's awesome, because you hope that the time that you have these young men, hopefully for 4 years, most of them, you have them in that 4 years, and you can leave an imprint on them from a positive standpoint. Every day is not going to be a good day. It's going to be some days where I'm going to chew your tail and I'm going to get after you, but at the same time, that I care, that I love you, and I do. I love Chris, have grown to love him, when he decided he was coming here and everything was official, like, my son called him and he was fired up about it. So, I had to take him to dinner and tell him the good job from a recruiting standpoint. But, just to have that relationship that you've built with the young man, and for him to recognize that, and for him to say, hey, I want that experience again, because I know what I'm getting off the field. I know what I'm getting from a coach and from a mentor perspective. I also know what I'm getting on the field. Now the only thing I don't know is the level and the place and all of that from a football standpoint. So, it's a pretty cool feeling.
When you're a new coach to a new school, obviously it seems like you got to teach some things, especially from a schematic standpoint, from the ground up a little bit. Were there points in last year where you kind of had to maybe be patient a little bit, and maybe this year with all the experience you have coming in, including a guy you used to have, it's like, all right, let's take it up a notch?
Yeah. So the big thing for us last year was just trying to understand what you have, you know what I mean? Because you have 15 practices in the spring, and then you got summer, OTAs, and when next thing you know, you're playing, at the beginning of September. And so you still don't really know until you get into those fights, you get into those tight games, you get into the big games, you get into, games where you get your tail whooped. And now, how do we respond? Who are we when we win? Who are we when we lose? Who are we when we finish the season? And just learning and understanding what that identity is. Coming into year 2, sitting down with Scott, our defensive staff, our offensive staff as a whole, and saying, okay, I know these are things that we need to pinpoint and work from a spring ball standpoint. These 15 practices, instead of accomplishing a laundry list of things, those things have now narrowed, and you say, okay, what do we look like from a base standpoint? What do we want to get better at? And so that's been a cool process for us, just getting here, and now you can coach guys, hard. Yeah, the transfer portal is real, and guys can leave, but you're gonna do it the way that we ask. You're gonna perform in a way that we hopefully prepare you for, and you're gonna want to be here. And if that's not the case, then guys have to make a decision and understand where they're at with that. So our goal is to be successful, offensively, defensively, from a team standpoint. And so at the end of the day, I didn't come here to coach and to be the little brother. We came here to coach to be a championship defense, a championship program. And so I think our guys feel that, and they're performing that way right now. So.
How much does depth come into play and help play at that level consistently from the start of a game to the end of the game, from start of the season to the end of the season?
Huge, because right now you hold your breath year one, please Lord, that guy go down, who's next, just from, like you said, a depth standpoint. And you can't come in and flip the whole roster in year one. You got to see what you have. And so now you're able to recruit, you're able to understand what you needed to fill holes or to make that depth, or to make us just a more cohesive unit and team. And so now I feel very confident that we can roll several guys out there and be able to compete at a high level. That competition that we talked about comes into play as well. But just in year two, you think you feel successful, or not successful, but you feel strongly that you've done a good job in the offseason putting together the right components to make sure that we're what we expect to be offensively and defensively.